All right, today we're going to build the P1 to P2 command centers and PI setups that I mentioned in the last video. Now, since the last video, I've had a couple folks who had looked at that, had told me that's not how I set up my command centers and my factories and my extractor heads. There's 100 different ways to set up your PI. I set mine up for pure efficiency. If you have got a method or if you figure out a scheme that works for you that can get you more than 8, 10, 11,000 units of P1 a day, then definitely do that. That should be your litmus test, your rule of thumb. If I can't get 8,000 a day with this particular setup, assuming you're on a good planet, there are some planets that are so light in resources that you're going to have a hard time getting anything out of them. But if you've got a good planet and you're getting 2,000, 3,000 a day out of it, it can be done better. And we showed that in the last video. I actually wound up getting around 11,800 units for the day out of that when it was all said and done. Now, also in this video, we're going to be using an epithal. When I'm picking up PI, my P1 especially, I oftentimes use my Prowler. It holds just over 13,000 meters. The problem is when you're doing a lot of PI, that's a lot of trips back to your station. And P2 will really need an epithal. It has a special hold that holds just PI materials, and in this case it's 58,500, and I don't believe I have that at level 5. I think I'm at level 4. I think this tops out at around 63, 64,000 units. Today we're going to make superconductors, which is a P2, and to make superconductors I need plasmoids and I need water. I will go into it in a little bit why I chose this specific amount. We'll get to that. There is a website out there, and if I can't figure out how to put the placard on this video, I'll put it in the comments below the video, called Ulysses PI Scheme, and it's fantastic when it comes to I want to produce this, what do I need? And once I know what I need, which planets can I get it from, it's probably the best site out there for that. So to get started, I have loaded my P1s, the water and plasmoids, into my epithal. I do not need to undock yet. I'm going to pull up my planets. We're going to use the same lava planet that I used for the other video. I just pulled the facilities off of it. The command center is still there. It does not matter where on the planet you put this. The concentrations and all that are irrelevant because we're not going to be extracting anything. This is just going to be a factory planet to maximize the production. So typically what I do is I start with 3 launch pads. And the reason I use 3 is I want to get the most material off this planet, build it the fastest. At the same time, I don't want to be babysitting this personally every day, coming in 3, 4 times a day and moving materials around. So I've got 3 materials involved on this planet. I've got the water, I got the plasmoids, and they're going to make superconductors. So that's 3 materials. So I'm going to build 3 launch pads. And what pattern or shape you make them is fairly irrelevant. I'm going to build 3 launch pads, hit submit. Now I'm going to link them. Okay, to make superconductors, we need an advanced industry facility. There's 2 kinds of facilities on this planet at least. When you get to P4, which is the highest level product you can make, for example, integrity response drones, a high-tech facility will appear here, but those can only be made on certain planets. I believe Barren, Gas, there may be another one, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's irrelevant to what we're doing here. So I'm going to make an advanced facility. I'm going to lay it down connected right here again, same as before. You want to be as close as you can. Once I put the first one down, I hit submit, and then I just double check. It's just a habit. Double check, make sure superconductors are on this list, which in this case I know they are, but superconductors, whoop, wait a minute, I know they should be here. There they are, right there. The reason I do that is more than once, submit, more than once I have laid down 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 factory planets and then realized I put the wrong planet, the wrong factory up. And then I had to tear them all down. And it was just a pain in the butt and a waste of money. So now that I have that, I will start adding more. And today I feel like instead of making the grids and all that, I'm just going to do some circular stuff and just work my way around. That'll be enough for the moment. Then I'll do the same thing I did last time. I'll finish these off, then I'll pause the video, populate the rest. I'm going to link these. just like we did before. Submit. Okay, now I'm going to tell each one of these, same as before, we're going to make superconductors. Double click it, hit submit. It's already highlighted superconductors, so I'll hit submit. And the last one. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and route these. Last time I think we set up with putting the materials out to the factories first, but there's no materials in here. So in this case, I'll have to wait to load the materials before I can route the materials. So I'm going to go ahead and just route these superconductors. Oh, before I route these, the reason I get these three up, and this will help you later on, when you go to your planet, for example, let me look at this one up here I've got, and I hit, let me undock first. You're going to see 3 launch pads at your customs office, and one of the problems you'll have sometimes is remembering which commodity went into which. Um, yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet. You can tell which commodity went into which launch pad. So now what we're going to do, I can't use that one because that's in a different system. Well, I'll show you here in a second. Right now, well, actually, we can show you right here. Like I said, I have not had coffee yet this morning. Here's your launch pad. Last time we didn't worry about this because we only had 1 launch pad. Now we have 3. I like to look at them at the first one, second one, and third one, and I take note of that. I've got J0, D0, and C0. When I put the materials in, it'll put them in there alphabetically. And then what I want to do is, in this case, what are my materials again? Water, plasmoids, and then I'm going to have superconductors coming out the end. So what I'll do is plasmoids, which is before water alphabetically, will go into the first one. Water will go into the second one. And then I will tell it to route the end product superconductors into the third one. That way, when I'm over here putting in fresh materials one day, I don't have to remember which one goes into which launch pad. I just, first one goes into the first launch pad, second one to the second, third to the, well, the third will be coming out. So that will take care of that, and it makes things a lot easier. So we're going to route, I believe I said, was it S0? Let me check that one more time. Or C0. C0 is what I'm routing to. So I'm going to take products, superconductors, and which one of these is C0? That is J0. There's C0. That's the one on top. So products route to C0. And the last one, then hit submit. Okay, these are now routed there. So now I need to get my materials into the center. So I will undock. Oop, I am undocked. I will go ahead and warp to the customs office. And especially if you're in an area that is a little more high traffic or a little more risky, I go ahead and get all this ready before I get there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deposit this stuff into the main hangar. Then I'm going to come on back to the Astra Hus where I can tether and I'm safe. In fact, you don't even have to tether. Once your materials are in the customs office, you can go ahead and dock back up. So I'm going to highlight these. I'm ready the moment I come out of warp to drop and run. We're actually near a busy high-sec system today in our wormhole, so I don't want to be out here for very long. I'm ready, waiting for it to come out of warp, drop, and run. And this is the reason I like to use my Prowler when possible, because these things are just slow. You can help that by putting on inertial stabilizers on the bottom. It has 3 low slots, the epithal. I think 3 low slots. And yeah, 4 low slots. I got 4 warp core stabs on this one. That helps too. But I'm in a wormhole, so if they drop a bubble, those stabs won't do me any good. But inertial stabilizers are fine, and it doesn't affect your cargo space. The planetary commodities hold is completely separate from the cargo. Okay, now that I am back to my station and I'm safe, plasmoids went into the first one, or will go into the first one, so that's JO. I chose this number, 26,315 of each commodity, because that's the maximum amount. Actually, you do have to undock. That's the maximum amount a 10,000 meter launch pad will hold of P1 materials. So J0, I will slide those plasmoids over. I'll hit transfer. And as you can see, I'm now 10,000 of 10,000. It's full. The second one is DO. That's what my water will go into. Transfer. And now everything I put in is over here. Now you can dock. Okay, once we're docked, we're going to go back to the planet mode. And I'm going to start with the first one. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Let me bring this down here where it's a little easier to get to. It has products in it now. It has water. So I will double click water. Double click my first. Submit. You can also just do it manually. Create route. Create route. And you can actually just keep going. You don't have to hit, this is one of the ones you don't have to hit submit after every single action. Now submit. Repeat the process with this side. Plasmoids going out. And submit. Now, as you can see, all the red rings are gone. They're all orange. There are little white dots are starting to appear that'll work their way around. So right now, this is fully functioning. Materials are flowing out of each of these two launch pads. They're going to build the superconductors, and they're going to be deposited into this launch pad. Now I'm going to pause the video here while I populate the rest of this. Alrighty, I've repopulated or populated the remainder. This is kind of an amorphous mess as far as the way they're set up right here. It doesn't really make a difference other than when you're doing your routing and moving your materials out, because sometimes you'll lose track which one, did I route that one yet? I don't know. Did I do this one to that one? The method some people use, like I used on the last video, where they're all kind of in a geometric square, rectangle, where they're in much more even rows, makes it easier for moving materials to them and routing at the initial setup, just because it's easier to keep track of. But once it's set up, and it doesn't make a big difference. So as you can see now, and I did the same thing here I did on the first video. I got most of them set up. I submit as far as deployed. I hit submit. Then I checked my command center, and I was at 90%. So I knew I had room for two more. These two are about 4% power grid each. So at 90%, I knew I could get about two more on. So then I put those two on, got everything linked, then went through and did those steps. So now everything is set up. Nothing's flashing at me. Materials are going out, being turned into superconductors, and they'll come back in here. And then I will add on to the end of this video tomorrow what we look like as far as the quantity coming in. So throughout the day or throughout your week, depending how much time you spend working your PI, you'll need to look at your command center, and not your command center, you'll need to look at your customs office and see how much material you have. And in this case, let me undock one more time. As you gather, again, you'll be gathering on your own schedule, but as you gather water and plasmoids in this case, you'll want to bring them over, move them into the customs office. I've got room for quite a bit more here. This has already gone down. Remember, at 26,315. So every cycle, which I think is an hour, after every hour, this will go down a little bit more and a little bit more. So if you really, really want to maximize your production, maybe once a day, come back in here, assuming you have more materials in here, slide them over, just to keep this thing running longer. And then tomorrow I'll come in and go to that third launch pad. I actually just saw that I did make a mistake. It's not a crucial mistake, but it is a mistake. I wanted the water to go into the second one, so I knew that the first material goes into the first launch pad, second material into the second launch pad, and then the third launch pad would spit out my superconductors. I actually routed my water out of the DO, so not a big deal. That's just something I'll have to remember or make a note when I'm putting materials in, taking materials out for what's where. But ideally, you want your first material alphabetically to go here, second material to go in here, and then your last launch pad is where you would route your final product to pull out of. It just makes it simpler as you go. All right, so we'll check this tomorrow and see what kind of production we're looking at. I did notice when I went back and checked the video to make sure for any errors, I did not actually make that mistake. I went back and checked. When I first clicked on this, and you can look at the video, it was JODOCO. So at some point, for whatever reason, the game reversed them, put them in this order. So I actually did put them correctly to begin with, but it looks like it rerouted it. But again, it's not a big mistake. It's not a big issue. It'll just be a footnote I have to keep in mind that materials are going into the right launch pad. The only problem is if you take a material, if I take the water and I move it over into the third launch pad, which is where my superconductors will come out of, or I move the water into the plasmoid launch pad, it doesn't create an irreversible problem. I can take it and slide it back over and then put it in the right location. The problem is every POCO you go to has a tax rate. The tax rate at ours is 2%. So that might cost 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, depending the value of what you're moving. So when you slide it over, you pay that tax. Then if you go, oops, wrong place, and you slide it back, you're going to pay the tax again. And then you'll pay the tax a third time when you slide it into the right place. So it's not a matter of it's a problem I screwed up. It's a matter of that little mistake just cost, a couple 100,000 ISK. And if you do that a bunch, a couple 100,000 ISK here, a couple 100,000 ISK there, it'll start to add up over time. So anyway, so it was not my mistake. It was the game rearranging the order of the launch pads in the drop down window. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to hop on tomorrow to be able to go back to the planet after it has had 24-hour cycle. So I'm just going to go ahead and do an update now. It's been just over an hour. And as you can see, we're making superconductors. Currently, my launch pads contain plasmoids and water, and it's made some superconductors. It should have made the first round of them already. So as we see here, I've got 23 facilities set up manufacturing. Looks like they're 3/4 the way through the second hour. And if I highlight here, sometimes this won't actually show the window there which says 115 superconductors. Sometimes it doesn't come up. I don't know why. So if that doesn't come up and I can see the 115, I can just click the launch pad, click cargo, superconductors 115. So that's 115 an hour. So as long as I keep material in the supplying launch pads, that's 2,760 superconductors per day on this planet at least. And if you need more, if that's something you want to produce, you can put it on multiple planets. But 2,700 a day with this setup.